I wanted to take a look at Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively today, take a look at their Synastry chart to see what's going on between them, why are tensions so high, what might have gone on the set of It Ends With Us. I am Luna, an astrologer and tarot reader of over 8 years. I have had the joy of guiding over 1,000 clients on their own personal astrological journeys. So if you would like your own personalized reading, you can head on over to my Etsy shop. I'm actually running a New Year sale right now, 20% off for a limited time. Check that out in the description below. Let's start off with this Mars-Pluto conjunction. Before I get started, both of them, the inner wheel is Blake Lively's chart in blue, and then the outer wheel is Justin Baldoni's in orange. So they have this really gnarly Mars-Pluto conjunction right here, and this is such like a controlling, like we are going to butt heads, battle of the ego situation. Even in romantic scenarios, like a Mars-Pluto conjunction, in my experience as an astrologer, is always marked by volatility, and it's also a placement considering that they're both in a movie that is, so steeped in like power imbalances and like the darker aspects of passion. It's not surprising to me that they have this together from a chemistry standpoint, from like a casting standpoint. This is awesome. It actually works really, really well for like the characters that they play. But in real life, it can create controlling narratives, even between couples, where it's like we're really passionate, but then that can easily become violent, that can easily become abuse. I believe Amber Heard and Johnny Depp have this dynamic as well. I think even Amber Heard has this innately in her birth chart. She has like a Mars Pluto contact. And essentially what this does is Pluto is Blake Lively's power. It is her desire to dominate. It is her desire to assert herself, but pretty much through control and through status of some sort. And Mars, which is Justin's Mars, he has this Mars in Scorpio. This is his ego. This is his ability to assert himself, to take leadership. And when we have these two come together, what happens is Blake is going to naturally want to dominate things. She's going to naturally create power struggles in their dynamic. And Justin is going to feel attacked. He's going to feel like she is usurping his control, usurping his leadership. And with his Saturn not too far away, Saturn-Pluto contacts are also notorious for dynamics between issues with authority. And because this is Blake, even though she is a producer on this film, he was also the director. So this Mars-Saturn conjunction here with Pluto in Scorpio, this really bodes well for anyone who wants to be a director. First off, this tells me that Justin himself is someone who likes to have a lot of control and a lot of power and a lot of dominion over the things that he does. So when he's in charge of something, he's pretty like particular about how he wants things to go. So having her Pluto here is basically her feeling like, well, I'm also Blake Lively, though. Like, I'm Blake Lively and I have more power in the situation. And something that's interesting, too, is that, his Mars being in her fourth house, the fourth house is the house of your home, of your safety, where you feel comfort. It's her baseline, what she needs to feel nurtured. And his Mars coming in here, even his Saturn too, it can make him come off as cold. It can make him come off as though she might be used to a certain level of comfort or, status or priority on the sets that she takes part in that maybe he didn't completely do for her. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that he was unwelcoming, but he has a Mars Saturn Pluto conjunction. This means that it's his way. He likes things the way he makes them happen. And Saturn is also really rigid. It doesn't, especially on her Pluto, this is him basically being like, I know you're Blake Lively, but this is my set. So this is like him asserting control in the sense of like, no one is above the law, etc., right? Saturn being structures and rules. And that could easily make her feel unwelcome, especially because it's his Mars. Now, the minute that tensions start to rise for whatever reason, I would say it's probably because Blake is used to being in control of things. And this would probably make, what's his name? Justin react kind of in a petty way. Now, considering his Mars is in Scorpio, these are people who are very strategic. They're very calculated. They do not do things accidentally. But you also don't want to cross someone with a Mars in Scorpio because they will make it their job to make your life harder. And they might not even do it, especially with his Saturn here. He might not do it in the most obvious way, right? And his moon being here, if he's a moon in Scorpio, this would make him very, like, he could be emotionally temperamental or emotionally volatile in some ways, but his Pluto's still here, which eclipses that in some ways. It makes him bide his time. It makes him react in petty but underhanded ways. With his Saturn here, it's kind of like being the bigger person or using the rules in kind of sneaky ways to make you uncomfortable. So I do think that at some point they were playing fire with fire. I do think, though, Justin's a little more calculated and a little better at wielding, being like playing the role of the good guy or playing the role of this is how things are done. So she might have wanted him to do things that were maybe not protocol, not typical to protocol. And so he kind of rode that line between what he had to do and kind of also being a little petty. Now they have this, they have a moon, they have their Mars on their luminary. So she has a Sun Mars conjunction, he has a Moon Mars conjunction. Now this means that both of them are used to getting their way. They both really like to get their way. Now with Blake, this is in Virgo energy, so this is what you have to understand about Blake. A lot that came out about their dynamic was that she was like really into the aesthetics of things, right? Virgo is very like detail oriented, but it's also a sign that could sometimes get lost in the little things and not think big picture. And so she probably wanted a lot of control over the clothes and the music and the way she looked and the way she spoke and the romance and all of these like little things about her character that, with his Mars and Scorpio here, he actually might have given her quite a bit of control early on with this Mars on his Pluto. I think initially, I mean, these technically sextile each other. I think they might have actually really enjoyed working together. I think she might have respected his direction, his assertion, his ability to make things happen the way he wanted it. But I think over time, when their ideas started to diverge, it became a conflict of him thinking Mars, Scorpio, Pluto. This is a deep, dark film. He wants to get into the nitty gritty of like the beef and the real substance of this film, where she might have been caught up with the Virgo energy on like the little frills and things. And that, like his inability to maybe allow her to have as much control over time as she maybe diverged in new directions over the little things, may have made her feel antagonized by him. And so then she pulled out the I'm the star, Pluto. I'm the power here. I'm the producer. I'm Blake Lively, when she didn't have as much control over the things that she wanted as maybe initially he might have given her a little more leeway than usual. But over time, as they diverged, those conflicts would really highlight this Mars-Pluto dynamic here between them. The other thing that's really interesting is his Sun is caught in a T-square between her Jupiter and her Pluto. And we need to understand the context for this. First off, Jupiter being here, Jupiter is all about expansion. It expands things. It's also about being opportunistic. And in the sign of Aries, sometimes that energy could be a little bit selfish or like self-focused. So her Jupiter means that squaring his Sun, it means that she was taking advantage of the film to amplify her own image and amplify her own pursuits. With Jupiter in the ninth house, this was about her comeback. She hadn't been in the film industry for a little while. She'd been, at home taking care of her kids. And this was her big comeback story, especially with this Jupiter retrograde. It's like, I'm going to come back and I want to be very immersed in how I want to frame this, how I want to make my big comeback. For him, with his Sun in Aquarius and even here in the sixth house, which is the house of coworkers, it's first off, he felt like a subordinate to her. The Sun in the sixth house means that he felt beneath her. He felt like Jupiter in the ninth house, she has a tendency to get things that she wants. And she wanted him to also open those doors of the things that she wanted. But beyond that, Sun in Aquarius, people think for the greater good. They think about the bigger picture. They think about the crew, the film, the overall benefit that this is going to have for everyone on the team. Versus her Jupiter in Aries might have been really focused on her own character, her own story, her own perspective. And with the opposition to Pluto here, the Sun squaring Pluto and her Jupiter opposing her Pluto, this is a dynamic where he would have felt like she was now eclipsing him, right? Because the Sun is, I want to shine, I want to be seen, this is my baby, this is my project. And now with her Jupiter, she's taken his opportunity because it was his movie. I mean, he had the rights to the book, right? And now she made it all about her and she was painting it in her own vision. And the thing is, people with a Sun in Aquarius, they're not necessarily not wanting to work with others. They're typically very collaborative. I mean, if you want to be a director, you need to know how to work with others. His Sun is also technically on her descendant by conjunction. But the problem is that I don't think she was technically as interested in collaborating with him as much as he might have been interested in collaborating with her in a respectful way with Saturn here. He might have been trying to assert boundaries of like, okay, I really love what you're doing over there, but these are the lines. You can do whatever you want within these lines, but once you get out of that, now you're just taking my job, right? Sun in Aquarius, squaring Pluto. The other thing is his Lilith is in her seventh house. Lilith itself is a point that deals with enemies, taboos, even like very complicated dynamics. Again, this is ideal for, like two actors who are playing, falling obsessively in love into something that turns incredibly violent and destructive. They have, like, it's not surprising that they were caught in these roles. But this also bled into real life with Lilith and Pisces in her seventh house. what started off as maybe she really maybe was initially really drawn to him, Lilith and Pisces, maybe she respected his creativity, maybe she respected his vision, maybe she found him really artsy and different. But over time, that becomes destructive whenever we have Lilith, right? And this is interesting because technically they actually make a really good team, right? She brings the star power with Pluto, and he brings the creative vision of Venus, Neptune, Jupiter conjunction. He's a very creative person. And in Capricorn, he has the consistency, the order, and the managerial skills to execute visions. But here's the problem. It got caught up in her Neptune, and her Saturn is on his Uranus, where now she's trying to control his vision. Even his Mercury on Neptune, on her Neptune, could lead to conversations where they initially thought they were on the same page, but then Neptune creates confusion. Neptune creates like Mercury in Capricorn, he's very grounded, he's very practical, he's thinking about the logistical aspects of the film. He might have been thinking about, okay, how does this fit into the bigger picture? And she's like, la di la di la, like Neptune in the fifth house, like, this would be kind of fun. This would be kind of cute. Like, imagine if we did this. And Jupiter, Neptune here, his Jupiter being like the benefactor, the generous energy, I do think he gave her a lot of leeway to be imaginative, to be creative. But I think that she started to get into the technical aspects of things with Mercury here, maybe into like editing or into like, blocking, or maybe exactly how the script was written, which she did talk about. Like, she had her husband writing the script. And so to him, with Mercury and Capricorn, that might have seemed a bit like flagrantly disrespectful, right? Saturn, Pluto, like, you're trying to take my job. Like, you're like undermining my authority on this set. And so initially, I think, her vertex is being activated by his Venus. So Venus vertex, this was a fated meeting, right? This means they were meant to meet. Honestly, there is like slightly romantic undertones to this, which I'm sure they channeled into their characters. But even the vertex Venus conjunction means that he was a catalyst in her life. Maybe for her own creative vision, but with Uranus here not too far, what started off maybe kind of pleasantly, probably over time developed into kind of chaos. What else can I tell you about these two? Her Jupiter is actually in trine to his Venus, which is why I'm saying, like, if they would have been able to kind of see eye to eye, and I think honestly, in some degree, this might have been inevitable, just because this Mars Pluto was simmering beneath the surface, and it wasn't probably super obvious at first. It might have manifested as like teasing. There were a lot of like things talking about how they didn't have like a super professional relationship, where he felt comfortable speaking to her about his private life. She felt comfortable speaking to him about her private life. There was some like somewhat inappropriate lines being crossed. I think it's the Moon Mars Pluto vibe, where it starts off very like intense. We really get each other. We want to like dig deep and like become enmeshed, right? Scorpionic energy, which she loves Scorpio energy. Her husband's full of Scorpio energy. But I think over time, that same level of like inappropriateness reached a level that became disrespectful on both sides. I think he started to feel like she was being disrespectful to him. She probably felt like he was being disrespectful to her, and that's when enemies to lovers. This is really enemies to lovers. Like, if they were dating, they could have easily channeled this into like passion. But it really gives off enemies to lovers, or like friends to enemies. I guess the other way around. Yeah, like enemies to lovers, or like friends to enemies kind of vibe, frenemies vibes between the two of them. All right, let me see if there's anything else. We also have this Mercury square to Uranus in South Node. I think that he found her to be kind of chaotic and sporadic. Like, she wasn't very grounded. He was like, these ideas are really cool, but like they just don't make sense together. I think that he felt as though she wasn't really getting the bigger picture. She didn't really understand, which makes sense. Like, both of them, when they did their press tour, like, he had a very different narrative than she did. And I think that he felt as though she was like lost in the stuff that doesn't matter with Virgo, at least from his perspective. And she felt like he was undermining her and making her feel like she was stupid, or trying to play power games with her. But I think that she might not have realized how weirdly she was trying to, like, she was wielding her power against him, even if she didn't immediately intend to. So let's take a look at the tarot to wrap this up. Let's see where they stand right now. We're going to take a look at his energy towards her at this time, her energy towards him, what's between them. Okay, so let's see. What is Justin's energy towards Blake at this time? We have the Sun. Ooh, interesting. And then what is Blake's energy towards Justin at this time? And then what is between them? Ooh, Judgment. Okay. Oh, we have the Tower at the bottom. I don't think this whole thing was planned, to be fair. I think the allegation is that she accused him of having, created this entire smear campaign around her. And I think that I don't know if he did start something like that. I don't think he ever thought it was going to unravel the way it did. Or he maybe didn't do what she said he did, and she thought he did. And so then now they're both confused. The Tower is like this when yeah, High Priestess, like they were functioning from like assumptions and feelings of what they thought was happening, and they were both completely wrong. And so then that's why we're in this catastrophic situation, because there's just been a lot of miscommunication, a lot of misinterpreting of each other's behavior that's been going on. But Justin's energy towards Blake is the sun. The sun is about bringing everything to light, which makes sense considering the attack that he is doing with his lawyers and the way that he has come on extremely strongly saying, we are going to take this to court. We're going to show all of the evidence. I think Justin feels like the truth is on his side. He feels like he, you know, again, he has this Mars and Pluto and Saturn in Scorpio. He bides his time. Whether or not he is guilty, I think is a little bit morally gray, because whenever we're dealing with Scorpio, especially a Saturn in Scorpio, it means that he has a strong sense of justice, but he also might deliver justice in very ruthless ways or very underhanded ways, right? And I also feel like he knows how to bide his time and wait for the opportune moment in ways that she doesn't. Again, she's got all this Virgo in her chart, which can be a little neurotic and anxious and like doesn't always see the big picture. With the sun here, I think he feels like I'm just going to put it all out there and I'm going to let it fall and blow up in your face kind of vibe, which is very Scorpio of him. She has the Eight of Pentacles in terms of how she views him. She thinks that he's been orchestrating all kinds of things behind the scenes. She thinks that he has created a trap for her. The Eight of Pentacles also means that she feels like she is doing everything in her power to try to divulge everything that happened on that set, but carefully curated. With the Eight of Pentacles, this obviously has to do with work, but it also has to do with her working day and night to try and paint her perspective of the story. But what I do think is really interesting is that the sun is the revealer of truths. So I do think that even if Justin is guilty to some degree, I think that some of the evidence might paint her in an overexposed light in a way that might not be to her benefit. Between them, we have Judgment. Obviously, the entire world is listening to this entire scheme now. Like, the world is up in their business. Judgment is literally about them having to face, you know, the ultimate, I guess you could say, like, consequences of everything that happened on this set. Mars Pluto means this set, one of the allegations that Blake said was that the set was not very professional. And I don't think that that's not true. I think that it probably wasn't as professional as it could have been. Right. But I also don't think that that's entirely Justin's fault, although he is a director. I do think that they both kind of nurtured, especially her moons in sextile to his Mars and his Saturn and his moon. Like, they had a very strong bond, at least initially, that created a safe space for them to feel like they could be a bit inappropriate. But obviously, as things turn sour, those very same blurred lines are the blurred lines that also created the grounds for disrespect on both sides. So this is really complicated. All right. I don't think this is as clear cut as like she's right, he's right. Let's see. Let's pull one more on his end. How does he feel? What is his energy towards Blake at this time? We have the Star. I think he thinks he's gonna expose her. The Star and the Sun. First off, he's rising. I'm gonna take a look at his transits. I'm gonna do another reading on that, on his personal transits, to see how this might play out for him. But the Star and the Sun. Well, first off, he thinks that she's using her star power against him, but he is going to expose her. He's like, you might have more star power than me, but I'm going to let it all come out. And I'm going to just let the truth speak for itself, or the evidence speak for itself. I also feel like he feels really hopeful. For her, we have, sorry about that, fell on the floor. We have the Five of Pentacles. I believe it's Five of Pentacles. It's financial and material changes. I think that she's really scared about how this is going to affect her assets, how this is going to affect her brand. I think her and her husband might even be scrambling to try to save their image and save their businesses and try and find a way to make sure that this doesn't affect them. I also know that he filed like a really insane lawsuit against them. So this would be a really huge financial investment. Also, taking something like this to court, I wonder if maybe she never thought, I wonder if she never actually intended to take this to court. Maybe she just wanted to intimidate him. But I think that this has gone a little farther than she's realized, and now it's taking a lot of effort and a lot of financial investment from her. So I don't think either of them are in a good place. Let's pull one more for the energy between them. We have the Nine of Pentacles. They're out for themselves. The Nine of Pentacles yeah, they're entering a really ruthless stage. I think initially this started as like a PR game, like who can make who look bad, but I think now it's about money, and now it's about revenge, and like it's just reached a very real level that goes beyond just public perception. Because now the public's involved, and obviously if Blake were to back down at this point, it would do more damage than good, because it would make her look bad, you know, to walk away. So anyway, that's what we have so far. Let me know what you guys think. What is your opinion on the situation? And if you have any more information on this, then I just know the gist of the conflict. But maybe you guys can fill me in on some of the other things that have gone on. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.